Keanu had just settled into his chair, smiling warmly as the audience cheered. The lights were bright, and the studio buzzed with energy as Jimmy Kimmel prepared to start the interview with his signature light-hearted banter. "Keanu," Jimmy began, leaning forward with a mischievous grin, "you've had such an incredible career, from the action-packed John Wick movies to the philosophical questions in The Matrix. But I have to ask, how does it feel to be the internet's favorite meme? You're basically the embodiment of humility and kindness. The internet seems to love you for that." The audience laughed, applauding the question, as Keanu responded with his usual warmth, "Well, I'm just happy to be here. And if people enjoy my work and can have a laugh or smile along the way, I'm grateful for that." Jimmy chuckled, clearly setting the tone for a light-hearted conversation. But then, with a swift and unexpected change in tone, Jimmy asked a question that made everyone in the room feel the shift. "You know," Jimmy said, still smiling, "everyone thinks you're so humble and down to earth, but let me ask you, are you really as humble as you seem? I mean, come on, you're a Hollywood legend with millions in the bank. Don't you ever feel like you've earned the right to flaunt it a little? You never seem to care about the fame or attention. Is that all just a front?" There was a brief pause, and the studio seemed to grow quieter. Keanu's smile wavered for just a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. It was clear that the question had struck a chord, but he wasn't about to let it derail the interview. The audience shifted nervously as Jimmy, perhaps sensing a reaction, continued, "I mean, you're famous for your down-to-earth attitude, but surely you get some satisfaction from the fame, right? Or is this all just an act, Keanu?" Keanu's expression remained stoic as he calmly met Jimmy's gaze. The atmosphere was now charged with a palpable tension, and the audience held their breath, unsure of how the conversation would unfold. After a long pause, Keanu finally responded, his voice steady but with a hint of intensity. "It's not an act, Jimmy," he said slowly, his eyes unwavering. "What I do is about the work, the people, and the experiences. Fame and fortune, they come and go. But it's the kindness we show to others, the way we treat each other, that lasts." The tone of the conversation had completely shifted. Jimmy, who had expected Keanu to shrug off the question with a smile, seemed taken aback by the depth of Keanu's response. For a moment, the audience was unsure how to react. Was Keanu challenging Jimmy? Or was he simply being himself, staying true to the values he'd long been admired for? Keanu continued, his voice calm but firm. "I don't think it's about flaunting anything. It's about being true to who you are. I've been very lucky in my life, yes, but that doesn't mean I need to walk around like I'm better than anyone else." The studio was silent as Keanu's words sank in. The audience, who had been expecting a typical celebrity interview, was now faced with an entirely different side of Keanu, the no-nonsense, deeply reflective man who didn't need to prove anything. Jimmy, realizing that his usual playful banter wasn't going to cut it this time, shifted in his seat. "I get it, Keanu. You're right," he said, his voice softer now. "But tell me this. How do you stay so grounded in a world that constantly wants to push you into the spotlight? It seems like a lot of people get caught up in the hype." Keanu smiled, a small, knowing smile. "It's easy to get caught up in the noise," he said, "but you have to remember what really matters. You have to stay connected to the things that keep you humble. Your friends, your family, the people who remind you that you're just human." The audience began to applaud, moved by the authenticity of Keanu's words. Even Jimmy, the usually unflappable host, seemed humbled by the actor's sincerity. Keanu had, in that moment, turned a potentially awkward confrontation into a profound lesson in humility and self-awareness. For the rest of the interview, the mood shifted back to something lighter, but the tension from earlier had dissipated, replaced by a sense of respect for Keanu and his unwavering authenticity. As the show wrapped up, Jimmy took a moment to express his appreciation. "Keanu, I have to say, you've definitely taught me something tonight," he said, his voice more genuine than before. "You've reminded us that fame and success aren't everything, and that staying true to who you are is what truly matters." Keanu nodded, his calm demeanor never wavering. "Thanks, Jimmy. It's all about how we treat each other." The interview ended, but the impact of Keanu's response lingered. The episode became a topic of conversation across social media, and fans from around the world praised Keanu for his wisdom and grace in handling the confrontation. The moment was a reminder that even in the most unexpected situations, staying true to oneself is the greatest form of strength. It had started as a typical late-night show interview, but by the end of the night, Keanu Reeves had shown the world exactly what it means to remain humble, even in the face of criticism. Jimmy, always quick with a retort, chuckled nervously but pressed on. So you're telling me that all this attention, the fame, the money, doesn't matter to you at all? His voice had a hint of disbelief, almost as if he was daring Keanu to say something more relatable, more fitting of a Hollywood superstar. Keanu took a deep breath, his expression as calm as ever. It's not about the money, Jimmy, he said quietly, his voice steady. I'm lucky to have had a successful career, but that doesn't change who I am or how I want to live. Fame comes with a lot of noise, but you can't let that distract you from the things that truly matter, like kindness, love, and making a positive impact. The audience fell silent, processing the weight of his words. Keanu wasn't playing into the usual celebrity narrative of basking in fame and fortune. Instead, he was turning the conversation back to what really mattered: authenticity, humility, and human connection. Jimmy, still processing Keanu's response, raised his eyebrows. But isn't it a little hard to avoid the spotlight when you're in the movies you're in? I mean, you're basically a living legend at this point. Keanu nodded, acknowledging the truth in Jimmy's statement, but added, I appreciate that, but being a legend is never something I set out to be. What matters to me is how my work connects with people and the impact it leaves. Fame and recognition are fleeting. The way you treat others and how you live your life, that's what lasts. For a moment, there was an awkward silence. Jimmy seemed at a loss for words. It wasn't every day that a guest turned the tables on him so effortlessly. The host, who was known for his quick comebacks and sharp wit, found himself momentarily stunned by the simplicity and truth of Keanu's statement. Okay, Jimmy finally said, half laughing, trying to regain some control of the conversation. You're making it sound like fame is a bad thing. We all know fame comes with perks. Surely you've enjoyed a few of them. Come on, Keanu. Admit it. Keanu smiled slightly, not missing a beat. I'm not saying fame is bad, Jimmy. It can open doors and create opportunities, but you have to remember that it doesn't define who you are. It's just a byproduct of doing something you love, something you're passionate about. The audience began to applaud, and Keanu's words clearly resonated with many of them. The tension in the air dissipated as people started to realize that this was not going to be the typical celebrity fluff interview. Keanu was in charge, offering an insight into the true value of success and fame, and it was clear that his message was having an impact. Jimmy, still caught off guard but eager to keep the conversation going, leaned in. I get it now, I really do, he said, his voice sincere. I mean, you've always been a man of mystery, Keanu. But I guess you've got a point. So what's the next big thing for you then? How do you top this whole legendary status thing? Keanu leaned back in his chair, a glimmer of a smile on his face. The next big thing? Just living each day with purpose. I don't think about topping anything. I focus on the work in front of me and the people I'm lucky enough to connect with along the way. There was a pause, and then the audience broke into applause once again. Keanu's humility and wisdom had not only silenced Jimmy's teasing, but had transformed the conversation into something far deeper, one that reminded everyone in the room of what truly matters in life. The remainder of the interview continued, in a more relaxed tone. Jimmy, now respecting Keanu's perspective, asked about his upcoming projects and the things he was most excited about. But the earlier tension had shifted. What had started as a playful back and forth had turned into an enlightening conversation about fame, success, and the importance of staying true to oneself. As the interview wrapped up, Jimmy thanked Keanu for being so open and candid. Keanu, you've definitely taught me something tonight. It's not about the fame or the money, but about the work and the way you treat people. Thanks for reminding us all of that. Keanu simply nodded, offering his usual calm smile. It's The least I can do, Jimmy. Thank you for having me. As the show ended, the audience rose to their feet, giving Keanu a well-deserved standing ovation. Jimmy, still processing the impact of the conversation, could only shake his head in disbelief. The night had taken an unexpected turn, and it would be one that would go down in late-night talk show history. Keanu had not only handled Jimmy's challenging questions with grace, but had used the moment to remind the world of the importance of humility, kindness, and authenticity. In the end, the world was reminded of what makes Keanu Reeves so beloved, not just his movie roles, but his genuine character. And for the first time in a long while, the spotlight wasn't on his fame. It was on the message he had just shared. True greatness comes not from what you take, but from what you give. The room was tense. The bright studio lights made the moment feel even more intense, with the Hollywood sign visible in the background, seemingly adding to the weight of the conversation. Jimmy, now a little more rattled by Keanu's unshakable composure, leaned forward, his hands animated as he spoke. But come on, Keanu. You can't tell me that you don't enjoy the perks of all this. Getting the recognition, living in luxury, driving the fast cars. How can you not enjoy that? Part of it. Keanu, who had remained stoic throughout the back and forth, finally leaned in too, his voice calm but piercing. It's not about the perks. It's about the purpose of your work and what it means to you, and how you use whatever platform you have to make a positive impact. The recognition, the luxury, those are just distractions. What matters is the difference you make in the world, not the accolades you collect. The audience, which had been caught between amusement and discomfort, now seemed to shift their focus entirely. The conversation wasn't about who could make the best joke or come up with the sharpest retort anymore. It was about something far more profound. Keanu had somehow steered the conversation from a light-hearted talk show moment into a deep philosophical discussion about fame, authenticity, and purpose. Jimmy, realizing that his usual tricks weren't working, paused, taking a moment to process Keanu's words. There was a beat of silence as Jimmy leaned back in his chair, perhaps for the first time in the entire interview, lost in thought. Keanu's unwavering stance was a stark contrast to the often self-deprecating, playful host, and it was clear that Keanu wasn't backing down. For a moment, the tension seemed to ease. Jimmy, perhaps slightly humbled but unwilling to let go of the heated back and forth, glanced at Keanu and said, "All right, I get it. You're all about living a meaningful life. But let's be real here. Most people can't afford to live like that. Most of us want a bit of the fame, the success, the stuff that comes with it." Keanu, without missing a beat, responded in a more personal tone, his voice softer but still filled with conviction. "You're right. The world is set up in a way that encourages us to want more, to want what others have. But at the end of the day, that's not what will bring you peace. It's the connections you build, the kindness you show, and the things you do for others. The fame and money, they won't love you back. But the impact you have on people, that's what lasts." The audience was now captivated. Some people nodded, clearly moved by the depth of Keanu's message. It was rare to see a celebrity speak with such authenticity, especially when faced with a challenge like Jimmy's pointed questions. The night had taken a surprising turn. The playful, light-hearted tone of the beginning was long gone, replaced by a profound conversation about life, fame, and what really matters. Jimmy, still visibly trying to process the impact of Keanu's words, finally nodded, albeit begrudgingly. "I guess I never really thought about it like that," he said, his tone softening, though he couldn't help but throw in one last jab. "But come on, Keanu, you must admit it's hard to stay grounded in Hollywood." Keanu gave a small smile, one of those rare smiles that seemed to reach his eyes, making his usually reserved demeanor appear even warmer. "It's not easy," he admitted, "but it's worth it. You have to work at it every day. Staying grounded doesn't mean rejecting the world around you. It means staying true to yourself in the face of everything else." The exchange, once tense and uncomfortable, had shifted into a powerful moment of clarity. Keanu had not only stood his ground but had taken control of the conversation with grace, offering up insights that spoke to the heart of what truly matters in life. Jimmy, clearly impressed but also feeling a bit of a sting from the confrontation, leaned back in his chair, acknowledging Keanu's point. The conversation wound down with a brief exchange of smiles between Keanu and Jimmy. The tension in the room had evaporated, replaced with a newfound respect. The audience, who had been uncertain about how this confrontation would end, now gave a warm round of applause for Keanu's wisdom and poise. As the show came to an end, Jimmy thanked Keanu for his time and for offering such an eye-opening perspective on life and fame. "You've definitely changed the way I think about things, Keanu," Jimmy admitted, his tone more reflective than usual. Keanu simply nodded, his quiet smile returning. "Thanks for having me, Jimmy. It's always good to have these kinds of conversations." The night ended with a buzz of excitement from the audience. They had witnessed something truly special, a moment where a simple talk show interview turned into a life lesson. Keanu Reeves had not only held his own against a cheeky talk show host, but he had also reminded everyone watching of the power of humility, kindness, and staying true to what really matters. As the lights dimmed and the credits rolled, the world was left with one thought. Sometimes, the most powerful moments don't come from entertainment or spectacle. They come from honesty, authenticity, and the courage to be real. The moment was electric with tension. As Keanu strode away from the set, the audience, initially frozen in disbelief, began to murmur. They had just witnessed something that no one had expected from the ever-composed actor. Raw emotion and a rare public break from his trademark calmness. For years, Keanu had been known for his humility, avoiding the flashy attention that typically comes with fame. But this was different. Jimmy, clearly rattled by the turn of events, attempted to make light of the situation with a forced laugh. "Well, folks, I guess we've learned that Keanu really does take his persona seriously," he said, trying to salvage the mood. But his voice lacked the usual comedic punch. The joke fell flat. The damage was done. In the audience, there was a sense of unease. People were still processing what had just happened. For many, the confrontation was shocking not because of the intensity, but because it was so out of character for Keanu. It wasn't the Keanu they were used to seeing, calm, measured, and self-assured. Instead, they had seen a side of him that was deeply frustrated, visibly hurt by the insinuation that his persona was an act. And just like that, the show's usual lighthearted energy was replaced with an unsettling silence. Backstage, the crew was in a state of shock. No one had seen this coming. Keanu had always been a professional, a man of few words but great wisdom. It was almost unheard of for him to react this way in public, especially on such a widely watched platform like Jimmy Kimmel Live. But his decision to walk off the stage showed a side of Keanu that many hadn't known existed, a man who would not allow himself to be diminished or misunderstood. As the show's producers quickly worked behind the scenes to figure out what to do next, Jimmy remained in the spotlight, visibly uncomfortable. He had a job to do, and this wasn't how the show was supposed to go. The host, who was known for his ability to handle any situation with humor and charm, was now at a loss. He had underestimated Keanu, and in doing so, had pushed him too far. Back in the studio, Jimmy, trying to regain some semblance of composure, addressed the audience. "Well, folks, I think we can all agree that Keanu's got strong feelings on the matter," he said, his tone more subdued than usual. "Let's give him a round of applause for his honesty." The applause was polite but lacked its usual enthusiasm. The audience was still processing the emotional exchange that had just unfolded before them. In the days that followed, the internet exploded with reactions. Social media was abuzz with commentary about the incident, with fans divided. Some felt that Keanu had every right to stand up for himself, particularly against the kind of disrespect he had faced from Jimmy. Others were shocked by his departure, seeing it as an unexpected departure from his usually gracious demeanor. Memes, debates, and think pieces flooded the web as the incident became a talking point across the entertainment world. Keanu, true to his character, remained silent. He didn't issue any public statement, nor did he feel the need to address the fallout. For Keanu, the message had been delivered the moment he stood up and walked away. He had made his point clear. No one should feel entitled to dehumanize or mischaracterize another, no matter how much fame or success they may have. Jimmy, on the other hand, found himself having to publicly apologize. He acknowledged the misstep on his show the following night, admitting that he had gone too far in his attempt to poke fun at Keanu's mystique. "I really messed up. Keanu deserves more respect than I gave him last night, and I want to make it right," Jimmy said, his tone sincere. The apology was well received, but the damage lingered. The show would never be quite the same again. As for Keanu, the incident didn't seem to affect him in the way one might expect. He continued his work and engagements, sticking to his quiet, humble routine. For Keanu, the confrontation was just another moment in the long journey of being true to himself. His message, though loud and clear, was simple. Stand firm in your values and never let others push you to be something you're not. The episode would go down in history as a landmark moment on Jimmy Kimmel Live, a night when an iconic actor stood his ground and refused to be anyone other than the man he truly was. It was a moment that not only changed the dynamic of the show, but also reminded everyone watching that no matter how famous you are, your integrity and authenticity should always come first. The aftermath of the incident on Jimmy Kimmel Live sparked intense reactions across social media, with fans and critics weighing in from all sides. Keanu Reeves's refusal to engage in the host's provocative tactics became a symbol of authenticity and integrity. His fans, many of whom already admired his down-to-earth persona, saw this as a confirmation of what they had always known. Keanu was the epitome of humility in an industry often associated with ego and excess. As the clips of the IG moment began circulating, support for Keanu grew exponentially.
Memes, quotes, and social media posts flooded platforms, with people applauding the actor for standing up for himself without compromising his character. "Keanu doesn't need the limelight to be great," one tweet read. "He shines just by being
real." Another user posted a video of Keanu walking off the set with the caption, "When you've had enough of people trying to box you in." Some fans even took to calling Keanu a role model for self-respect, highlighting his calm response and the way he handled a potentially explosive situation with grace. People admired how, despite being pushed to his limits, he didn't resort to the same snarky or defensive tactics many might have in a similar position. He had made a point of quietly asserting his values and walking away when things no longer aligned with his principles. However, Jimmy Kimmel's part in the incident did not go unnoticed. While Keanu's fans rallied around him, many took to social media to express their disappointment with Jimmy's behavior. Critics were quick to argue that Kimmel's attempts at humor were not only uncalled for, but also disrespectful. Some wondered if it was time for late-night shows to reassess their approach to celebrity interviews, especially given the way Kimmel treated Keanu. Late-night TV should be a place of humor and lightness, but it shouldn't come at the expense of someone's character, one commenter wrote. It wasn't long before Jimmy found himself at the receiving end of significant backlash. In interviews and on social media, many suggested that he had crossed the line with his teasing and sarcastic jabs at Keanu's mysterious persona. Critics pointed out that, unlike many other celebrities, Keanu's reputation had always been rooted in kindness and sincerity. To mock him for those traits was, for many, out of touch with the essence of who Keanu was. Realizing the magnitude of the situation, Jimmy Kimmel took to Twitter to issue a public apology. "I want to apologize to Keanu for my comments. In hindsight, I see how my attempt at humor may have come off as disrespectful. Keanu is one of the most humble, down-to-earth people in Hollywood, and I should have recognized that." He continued, "I was wrong to push him in a way that made him uncomfortable, and I respect him even more for handling it the way he did. I have a lot of thinking to do about how I approach my guests." While some fans appreciated Jimmy's apology and saw it as a sign of growth, others felt that the damage had already been done. They argued that words once spoken could not be taken back, and that the awkwardness of the moment would remain part of Keanu's legacy on Jimmy Kimmel's show. As the media attention shifted back to Keanu, it became clear that he was unaffected by the controversy. In true Keanu fashion, he remained unfazed by the whole incident, Instead of lingering on the drama, he kept to his routine, continuing his work and focusing on the projects that mattered most to him. Whether it was promoting his upcoming film or working on charitable endeavors, Keanu's behavior showed that he was someone who lived by his own values, regardless of what the media or others said about him. The entire episode became a moment of reflection for many. It reminded fans not just of Keanu's humility, but of the importance of staying true to oneself. In a world where celebrities are often seen as living above the rest of us, Keanu's refusal to bow to pressure or play along with Hollywood's games was a refreshing reminder that success doesn't have to come at the cost of authenticity. Keanu was the same man in front of the camera as he was in private, genuine, grounded, and steadfast in his beliefs. The incident also sparked a wider conversation about the way we treat celebrities, particularly those who have built their careers on being grounded and humble. Perhaps it was time for a change in the way the public viewed fame and success. In a time when it can be easy to get swept up in the glitz and glamour of celebrity culture, Keanu Reeves' handling of the situation offered a timely lesson in humility and grace. For Keanu, the incident on Jimmy Kimmel Live was just another chapter in his career, not one driven by fame but by the genuine connections he made with people and the simple, honest life he chose to live. And in the end, it was his ability to stay true to who he was that made him not just a Hollywood icon, but a true role model for millions around the world.